I want to get straight into the U.S. response to the crisis in the Middle East with my first guest, Michael Doran, Senior Fellow and Director of the Center for Peace and Security in the Middle East at the Hudson Institute. Michael, thanks so much for joining us on the U.S. Report. Let's get straight into it. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has landed in Israel and met with Benjamin Netanyahu. What message is he sending to the Israelis, and what does he want to achieve with this trip?
Hi, James. Thanks for having me. It's great to see you. He's there to express support for Israel and to, I think, help Israel prevent Hezbollah from opening a second front in the north. The nightmare scenario for the Israelis was kind of a 1-2 punch, where Hamas would hit them in the south, and then they'd get an uppercut from Hezbollah in the north. And I think the Americans, I think the Biden administration, you won't hear me say this very often, but I think they've done the right thing here, and they have they've moved significant naval assets into the Eastern Mediterranean in order to deter Hezbollah. And I think Blinken is there to monitor the situation, show support, and make sure that we don't have a wider regional war, which would be a disaster for the United States.
Well, absolutely, it would be, and it's all, but I kind of feel like it's all very well and good that the U.S. is sending an aircraft carrier to the region. It's announced military supplies. But on the other hand, Michael, it seems kind of schizophrenic, given that the U.S. has also empowered Iran so much under Joe Biden and Barack Obama before him. So, I mean, in a sense, they're trying to prevent somebody that they turned into a regional hegemon from acting like a regional hegemon.
Well, James, you've dragged me away from my supportive statements very quickly, and my ability to hold up this front of solidarity with the White House is quickly eroding. I agree with you 100%. It is schizophrenic. In addition to while I think they have done the right thing in supporting Israel against Hamas, their policy against Iran inadvertently, I don't think this was ever their goal, but it inadvertently incentivized and rewarded violence by Iran through proxies, especially Hamas and Hezbollah. And the policy is continuing to reward it by refusing to admit that Iran had a hand in this war, in these horrific attacks. Iran is the strategic enabler of Hamas. The ties between Hamas and Iran are so strong, so deep, so well understood. To say, which the administration is saying repeatedly now, that there's no evidence that Iran had anything to do directly to do with this attack is just ludicrous.
Yeah, I mean, that just seems, as you say, ludicrous here. We know that Hamas essentially wouldn't exist without Iran. Hezbollah, the same thing. So why won't the U.S. now do what seems like the logical step? Cut off Iran, say you're not getting that $6 billion back, put sanctions on the oil, and return Tehran to the pariah status that they enjoyed, if that's the word, before Barack Obama decided to start normalizing things with them through the JCPOA.
Well, this policy of engaging with Iran and trying to use the engagement to moderate the problems in the region is really deeply entrenched in their worldview. They strongly believe, they won't admit this openly, but they strongly believe that the Israeli and Saudi conflicts with Iran were forcing the United States to take extreme positions against Iran that were not in the American interest, and that if the United States would distance itself from its allies somewhat, reach out to Iran, show a willingness to come to an accommodation with Iran, that would reduce tensions throughout the region. You may have seen Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, recently had an interview with Jeffrey Goldberg. That was a public interview with him, Jeffrey Goldberg of the Atlantic magazine, in which Sullivan said basically that the policy of de-escalating and engagement and efforts to integrate the region were making it a much quieter place.